Part 7. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 61. Chapter 61 completely destroys Li Beer. Wearing a white dress, she elegantly rides on Kinga, whose fiery red fur is as smooth as satin. She attracts everyone's attention as soon as she appears. The movements of her horse are like flowing clouds and flowing water, with a kind of intoxicating rhythm. Under her exquisite driving force, Kinga stretches her limbs and runs lightly, like a dazzling cloud on the horizon. Just with this gesture, Li Beer will be completely defeated. Du Yunfen looked at the field. The speed is still very fast, another kid from a rich family said. It's just flying, the third rich kid. Yes, Qing Ji ran as if he was flying. His slender hooves barely touched the ground, and he leaped forward a long distance with a single click each time. Xiaoling, on the other hand, controlled the reins easily, facing the sunshine and wind of the early spring afternoon, and the fluttering peach blossom petals. Her slender figure and smooth cheeks were as beautiful as the legendary elf. Her appearance may not be the most beautiful. However, the light she shined at this moment was beyond the reach of all the girls present. Li Er. Du Yunfen's eyes were still fixed on the field, and he reached out and patted Li Lei on the shoulder. Good vision. Li Lei smiled and followed the beautiful figure in the field. In just a short time, Xiaoling had already completed 1.5 laps on Kinga and was about to catch up with Li Beer. That is to say, while Xiaoling had completed 1.5 laps, Li Beer had only run 1.5 laps. Not even there. What a huge gap! Outside the stadium, the spectators were all excited. Come on! Yasin Ling! Overtake her, someone cheered Xiaoling. Come on, come on, come on, there were more cheers. Xiaoling leaned over slightly and patted Qing Ji's gorgeous, satin-like fiery red mane. Xiao Ji, it's up to you. Kinga connected with her master, jumped up, and caught up to Li Beer only 1 meter away. Li Beer panicked. She didn't expect Xiaoling to chase her so fast. Damn it! She waved the riding crop desperately, whipped the maroon horse under her crotch, and cursed, faster! You beast! Faster! Don't let that stinky woman pass you! The bay red horse was in pain and reluctantly kept half a meter away from Qing Ji. Catch it, the voices of the onlookers became louder. Li Beer heard this and was so angry that he whipped the bay red horse hard again. But this time, no matter how hard she whipped the horse, the bay horse couldn't go any faster. It had tried its best, and if it couldn't match the speed, it couldn't match it. Seeing that Xiaoling was about to overtake her, Li Beer gritted his teeth and pulled the bay horse to occupy the position. Block them. Don't let them pass. We can't run fast, and they can't run fast either. Li Beer made up her mind to block Xiaoling from behind. Hunting to a narrow place, and with Li Beer deliberately blocking the road, it was really difficult for Xiaoling to overtake her. How shameless, a rich boy angrily rebuked. That's it, others all agreed. Xiaoling looked so beautiful while galloping. Her figure was as graceful as flowing clouds and flowing water, and her flying figure was like a landscape painting. But now, her speed has been slowed down by Li Beer's obstruction. Just when everyone was dissatisfied, Xiaoling just smiled. Want to block her? Dream. Xiao Ji, she gently lifted Qing Ji's reins. Come on. The fiery red and extremely gorgeous horse suddenly neighed loudly. It was full of power, as if a queen was ruling the world. It is the supreme being among the horses in Nanshan, and no horse dares to offend its dignity. The bay red horse in front was frightened by Kinga's neighing, and instinctively gave way to the road. Let's go, Xiaoling pulled the reins, and the fiery red horse flashed an after-image in mid-air, like a demon, and instantly surpassed the bay red horse. Oh my God! Beautiful! Cannot believe it! The onlookers were excited. This speed was so beautiful that many people didn't even see what was going on. They felt that Xiaoling and Qing Ji's figures had jumped in front of Li Bei'er and the Bay Red Horse. I've never seen such a powerful female rider. Du Yunfan's arm was still on Li Lei's shoulders, but he forgot to take it back. Li Lei still had a bright smile on his face, but he was also shocked in his heart. This girl was so good at equestrian skills. How did she learn it? It seems that she has many secrets. He narrowed his eyes slightly, a flash of thought flashed in his deep eyes. There was no suspense in the next race. Xiaoling easily completed 3 laps and reached the finish line first with a huge advantage of half a lap to win. No, if you include the lap she had given Li Bei'er before, that is to say, Xiaoling leads Li Bei'er by a full lap and a half. What is the concept of a circle and a half? That speed is twice that of Li Bei'er. The crowd was excited once again and marched toward the finish line in a mighty manner, just like welcoming a triumphant hero. Xiaoling jumped off the horse lightly and took the drinking water from the racecourse attendant. Xiaoling, good job. Li Lei praised her without hesitation. She smiled and patted Kinga beside her. Kinga is good. The flaming red, graceful and proud horse lowered its head and nuzzled its master affectionately. This horse has a fierce personality and no one can get within 3 steps of it. However, it has no reservations and is extremely loyal to the person it recognizes. Du Yunfan, Zhou Xiao and others also gathered around and praised him one after another. Several smart girls saw the trend at this time and knew how popular Xiaoling was among the rich kids, so they surrounded her, flattered her with smiles, and said they wanted to invite her to drink tea and chat. Ask her for horsemanship lessons. So much so that when Li Bei'er arrived at the finish line, they didn't even notice. Li Bei'er was so angry that his teeth almost broke, and he threw the riding crop to the ground angrily. After a second thought, I realized that this was a good opportunity. If I ran away quickly, I could pass the bet. So she took advantage of others' unpreparedness and quietly slipped away in the opposite direction of the crowd. Stop, a cold voice said. It was Xiaoling. Even if no one paid attention to Li Bei'er, she was always watching. She, Xiaoling, doesn't have any other good qualities except that she holds grudges. Anyone who offends her will always find their way back to her. Do you want to slip away easily? No way. Where are you going, Miss Li? Xiaoling's lips curled up with a hint of mockery. Everyone's eyes turned to Li Bei'er, and they finally discovered her existence. Li Bei'er, if you lose, are you trying to escape? Someone said. How could it be possible? Li Bei'er secretly hated her, but seeing that she couldn't escape, she had no choice but to be stubborn. It's okay if you don't. Xiaoling walked out of the crowd, stopped in front of her, stretched out a hand as white as jade. Bring it here. What to take? Li Bei'er pretended to be stupid. A colorful diamond necklace. Xiaoling smiled and said, want to default on the bill. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weiniang. Chapter 62. Chapter 62. Being rewarded by a woman. Li Bei'er looked ugly and covered the necklace on her chest with one hand. Don't push yourself too far. This necklace was very expensive. She had been asking for it for a long time before asking a godsister in her circle to borrow it. That godsister only had such a valuable piece of jewelry. If she lost it, she would definitely fight her to the death. Li Bei'er felt like crying just thinking about it. Xiaoling still smiled and said, that's because I want to default on the debt. As she spoke, she glanced at Mr. Zhou lightly. Mr. Zhou felt uncomfortable with her look. He had brought Li Bei'er, and it was his person who had been lost, which made him very angry. Li Bei'er, his tone was cold, I'm willing to admit defeat, but don't make it so that you don't even have a chance to admit defeat. Li Bei'er trembled all over and suddenly woke up. It would be better to offend my god-sister than to offend young Master Tuesday. Young Master Tuesday had at least 100 ways to make her die ugly. Li Bier angrily took off the colorful diamond necklace from her neck and handed it to Xiaoling. "Take it." Xiaoling took it. The bright light of colored diamonds highlighted her white fingers, making it so beautiful that people couldn't take their eyes away. Li Bier's heart clenched tightly, her body ached terribly, and she watched Xiaoling's movements reluctantly. Xiaoling played with the necklace carelessly and said to Li Bier, "You can get out now." "What, you still want to get out?" Li Bier originally hoped that Xiaoling would forget this incident, but unfortunately, she remembered it clearly. She gritted her teeth and glared at Xiaoling. "Don't go too far. Xingling, you are also in the entertainment industry. You are so pushy, don't make it difficult for everyone to meet each other in the future." "Meet each other? There's no need for that." Xiaoling Yun is calm and gentle. She is just a third-rate star. What qualifications do she have to be compared with her? In her eyes, this Li Bier is just an insignificant speck of dust. "Are you going to get out on your own, or should I have someone help you get out?" she asked kindly. Li Bier's face turned white and green, green and white again, intertwined and changing. It was very exciting. Xiaoling, on the other hand, counted on her fingers and said, "If you roll by yourself, you can master the light and heavy strokes by yourself. You can protect your face more or less, and others will help you roll. You can't do it lightly or hard. I'll get out of here." Finally, Li Bier gritted her teeth and said. She was so cruel that while everyone was either gloating or watching the show, she hugged herself into a ball and rolled out along the lawn in circles. She rolled very hard, and soon her body and face were covered with grass clippings, her hair was disheveled, and there were cuts cut by fine stones and branches, making her look extremely embarrassed. In the crowd of onlookers, there were several girls who covered their mouths and smiled. This Li Bier is usually very arrogant, and many girls are unhappy with her. Now they can witness her downfall, and they feel very happy. On the surface, he pretended to be sympathetic and commented coquettishly, "How pitiful. That's right, my face is scratched. I don't know if there will be any scars. So, you still have to be self-aware as a person. If you mess with someone who is very young, I really don't know what she thinks. Who knows, she is so stupid and miserable." A group of girls were chattering, saying words that seemed to be pity, but in fact they were so excited that they couldn't hide it at all. Xiaoling was also in a good mood. She always wanted to take revenge, and this feeling of revenge in person was still very pleasant. "Here you go," she said to Li Lei in a good mood as she watched Li Bier get out of sight. Li Lei looked at the extra-colored diamond necklace in his hand with confusion. "Give it to me." Yes, Xiaoling's tone was brisk and matter-of-fact. "I borrowed the bet from you. Of course I will give you the winnings as interest." After she finished speaking, she turned around and left gracefully. Li Lei was left in a daze looking at the colorful diamond necklace in his hand. Du Yunfen laughed so hard. Li Er, ha 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 ha, you have always been the only one to reward women. When will it be a woman's turn to reward you? How is it, how do you feel? Why don't you catch up and thank the Lord for your kindness? Ha 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 ha. Li Lei's face turned dark, he put away the necklace in his hand and strode away. The people who stayed behind pulled Du Yunfen worriedly. "You said, Li Er won't be angry anymore, right?" "How is that possible?" Du Yunfen was still laughing, wiping his tears while laughing. "Oh, you made me laugh so hard, ha 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 ha. Don't worry, Lao Lu, you didn't see that girl eating Li Er to death. What's wrong with Li Er? Maybe he's really angry with her? He's just as angry at himself." Among the group of people, Du Yunfen and Li Lei have the best friendship, and they are truly life-threatening brothers. So, hearing him say this makes people around him feel more at ease. Heart, it's better that Mr. Li is not angry, otherwise, everyone's life will be difficult. Li Lei was indeed angry at himself. It was he who brought her to the Nanshan Club, but he failed to protect her properly, causing her to be provoked and asking her to stand up and solve the trouble on her own. She refused to accept even gifts from him, and even used interest to break up with him. Lillet felt that he had coaxed so many girls since he was a child, but he had never failed like this. This is a disgrace, an absolute disgrace. No, he has to find a way to avenge his shame. Just when Lillet clenched his fist and swore, Xiaoling was in a good mood. She held Kinga's hand and walked slowly along the lawn. This walk has gone a long way. Gradually, there are more peach blossoms around, and the fallen flowers are colorful and beautiful. How long has it been since you took a good look at the scenery like this? Xiaoling thought as she walked. It seemed that since she learned about the engagement between Pei Xian and Wang Jingguan in her previous life, the whole world had been shattered and it had never been brighter again. Since her rebirth, she has been immersed in the sad past, and has to deal with the entanglement of real chores and Pei Xian. If she hadn't come to Nanshan to ride horses and see the peach blossoms this time, she didn't know when she would show a sincere smile. She reached out and touched Kinga's mane, which was as gorgeous as blood satin, and Kinga rubbed her affectionately. Coming here and meeting Kinga again are all thanks to one person. Lillet. Perhaps, getting along with Big Boss Li was not as bad as she thought before. While thinking this, she heard someone calling her from behind, Xiaoling. She looked over and saw that Cao was about to arrive. The person riding behind him was none other than Lillet. He holds the reins loosely with one hand and rides on the graceful and solid back of the black Hanoverian horse. His handsome face faces the sunshine and the fragrance of flowers, making people unable to take their eyes away. He took a few steps forward on his beloved horse, then turned over and dismounted, and came to Xiaoling. I've been looking for you for a long time. Why are you walking here alone? What are you looking for me for? She asked, tilting her head slightly. Hand out, he smiled. What? She wondered. Just stick it out. So she stretched out her hand. His warm and dry hand held hers in the sunshine, and then she felt something cool and heavy wrap around her wrist. She looked down and saw a beautiful bracelet. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weiniang. Chapter 63. Chapter 63 Nanshan Peach Blossom. The bracelet is made of platinum, with a four-leaf clover pattern engraved with extremely exquisite techniques. Every detail is carefully crafted and flawless. It is still a style that girls will like. It is gorgeous and unique, and low-key. Inadvertently noble. But Xiaoling only glanced at it and then raised her head in confusion. What are you doing? Lillet, it's for you. If you win on horseback, they all give you the jackpot, and I want to give it to you too. There was a little bit of coquettishness and rogueness in his tone, like a child grabbing candy. Xiaoling couldn't laugh or cry. I don't need it. You have to ask for it even if you don't want it. Boss Li is even more rogue. Xiaoling reached out to take off the bracelet, but was held down by Lillet. Don't take it off, I've kept the necklace you gave me. Xiaoling was choked. Boss Li smiled innocently and brightly. You have just made your debut. There will be many places where you will need to use jewelry in the future. The company's budget for newcomers is limited, so you can't just exchange the same few pieces. You can keep this bracelet, you can suitable for many occasions. Xiaoling's hand slowly dropped. Yes, he was right. Female stars compete not only for their strength, but also for their beauty and clothing. Although she doesn't pursue these extraneous things as hard as other actresses, she doesn't have to be so pretentious that she has to refuse the equipment that comes to her door. Thinking of this, she smiled at Lillet and said, Thank you, boss. Calling me boss is so unfamiliar, the big boss asked, Can't you change your name? Xiaoling took off her bracelet again. No, no, Big Boss Lee compromised. Boss, just boss, keep your things, keep them. A hint of smile flashed in Xiaoling's eyes, and she felt that the cool metal on her wrist was slowly getting warmer. The sunset in the evening was warm and soft, and the orange sunset was full of peach blossoms. Xiaoling and Li Lei walked side by side along the 10-mile peach grove, with Kinga and Xiao Lei following behind. Looking from a distance, it looked as beautiful as a tree. Vice picture scroll. Du Yunfan stood on the upper floor of the club, leaning on the railing with a high-power telescope and looking into the distance. Li Er is really in trouble this time. When has this beast ever done such a thing as relaxing with a girl? Look, look. He is looking at the girl. He leaned over and touched the girl's shoulder. The girl avoided it, and moved closer, and avoided it again. A group of people looked at Du Yunfan in silence. They don't even need to look to know that young Master Li is trapped. Just now, second young Master Li was furious and had someone send him this bracelet. Although this bracelet was only made of platinum, it was hand-carved by a top-notch craftsman. Such a seemingly ordinary thing was worth more than all the gifts they all gave combined. Valuable. What's more, second young Master Li sent a helicopter to specially deliver it. They originally wanted to take advantage of the helicopter and bring the lottery they promised to Xiaoling. However, Li Er not only refused to agree, but also threatened them viciously. Who dared to give Xiaoling the lottery before him? It depends on who looks good. Stingy, really stingy to the extreme. Several noble gentlemen murmured in their hearts, if this continues, will they not become wife slaves after they get married? Oops, that's not right. Suddenly everyone realized a problem. This girl was just a young star who had just debuted. She didn't look like she had a family background. She was not a well-known Chiyuan. How could she become Li Er's official wife? As expected, it's just for fun. Thinking about it this way, everyone felt relieved. Maybe Mr. Li just wanted to play a new game. A group of people staggered around drinking afternoon tea, talking and laughing. In the peach blossom forest, Xiaoling was tired from her walk, so she reluctantly said goodbye to Qing Ji and returned with Li Lei. If you like it, I will often accompany you to see it in the future, Li Lei said. Xiaoling was slightly startled, looking in the direction of Kinga a little absent-mindedly, but whispered, "Thank you, no need." After all, it was the horse under Pei Xian's name, and no matter how close he was to her, he could not change this fact. As the last rays of the sunset fell, the pain and haze of her past life slowly crept back into her mind. Li Lei didn't know why she was depressed. At that moment, he felt that although he was walking beside her, he seemed to be far away from her, so far away that he could not reach her. No matter how hard he stretched out his hand, he could not grasp it. Can't live, can't touch. This feeling is terrible. Two people with their own thoughts returned to the lively crowd in the club, had dinner with everyone, washed up and went to bed. The next day, Li Lei sent Xiaoling back to Tianyi training camp. He still put her down in an inconspicuous corner of the garage. Xiaoling bid farewell to Li Lei and returned to her dormitory. Opening the door, she found several people standing in the dormitory. In addition to her roommates, there was also the dormitory, and a strange, timid-looking girl. Yeah, once you find a house, you can move out. Huh, Xiaoling blinked. Trainers after their debut have to move out of the dormitory, didn't you know, said the dormitory supervisor. Xiaoling then remembered that Tan Ying had said this when she signed the debut contract. However, she was so busy with modeling and singing practice that she forgot about it. She apologized to the house warden and Yi, and allowed Yi to stay. Although it was uncomfortable for two people to share a bed, she was in the wrong and had to admit it. At night, lying on the bed, accompanied by Yi's even breathing beside her, Xiaoling began to think about moving. Where should she move? She can't go back to Yes' parents. Who knows if those parents, who are greedy for money, will betray her again. Buy a house by yourself? Just kidding, the housing prices in the city are ridiculously high now, where does the money come from? She had no choice but to go to Tan Ying's office the next day. I've asked many classmates, she said. There were trainees like me who didn't have a suitable place to move to. I heard that they can borrow a place from the company to live. There are such rules, Tan Ying said slowly and sanctimoniously. It's not that I won't lend it to you, but unfortunately, there are no more vacancies under the name of Tianyi Company. How about this, you can rent a house outside for the cost. Company reimbursement. Xiaoling had no choice but to do this. She asked Wai Wei to look for it. Wai Wei is the assistant assigned to her by the company. She is an enthusiastic and lively girl with a pair of dimples on her round face and a very cute smile. Within a few days, she found several good houses and reported the information to Xiaoling. After Xiaoling came back from Nanshan, she continued to be busy fighting with Wei Shayan's glass fingertips. She practiced the song so much that she had no time to worry about such chores. She told Wai Wei that it would be fine if it met the company's requirements. For artists of different levels, the company has standards for food, clothing, housing, and transportation. Wai Wei is familiar with this and carefully selected a house that met the standards and submitted it to Tan Ying. However, Sister Xiaoling, Wai Wei calls her sister with respect despite being the same age as her, the house has been rejected by Mr. Tan. Xiaoling was puzzled, why? Wai Wei was also confused. Mr. Tan didn't say the reason. He just said that you should go find him yourself. Xiaoling sighed. Not sure what Tan Ying was up to, she resigned herself to her fate and went to his office. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 64. Chapter 64 Meeting Su Tang again. Tan Ying sits behind a large log desk, processing a mountain of official documents. Seeing Xiaoling come in, he didn't even raise his head. Of the houses you are looking for, which one has security measures that can protect Pei Zion? Xiaoling then understood why he rejected those houses. It turns out that the problem is not those houses, but the man she got into trouble with. These days, she has been avoiding thinking about that man, as if she can pretend that he has never appeared as long as she shrinks into her own little shell. But in fact, it is so difficult to forget him. Even when I closed my eyes when singing Glass Fingertips, it was still like him. Fingertips across the glass/water mist is cool. Who is singing Lonely in the Air/? That unspeakable/taboo hurt. During the audition, Wei Shayan was very satisfied and told Xiaoling that she didn't expect that she could sing the ballad so amazingly, so unforgettably, and repeatedly, every detail, every detail. But he didn't know that she was really tossing and turning every night. Perhaps it was the thoughts evoked by Glass Fingertips. She was always struggling with those entanglements of love and hate, and was stuck in the past and couldn't get out. Instead, she forgot the most realistic thing: Pei Zion tried to kidnap her. Tan Ying said, "Yes, Yingling, these houses are not up to standard." She was worried that if these houses were not up to standard, then most of the houses in the city might not be up to standard. What should I do? She was anxious in her heart and couldn't help but think wildly. Maybe she could stay in the training camp for 10 or 20 years. When her appearance grew old and her years faded away, maybe one day, Pei Zion would let go. Thinking about this, I feel sad again. Tan Ying looked at her coldly. Seeing that the fire was almost done, he tapped his finger on the long wooden table and spoke slowly, "If it's inconvenient for you, why don't I show you where to go?" There was a flash of light in her eyes, and she looked at him like a savior. Tan Ying smiled, "You have been to boss's apartment last time, right? He has a vacant apartment next door that can be rented to you." Big Boss knew that she was going to move, so he specifically asked her to move her next door to him. General Manager Tan made a roundabout way. Twists and turns, Now the picture is finally clear. Xiaoling suddenly became alert. Mr. Tan, why, although her impression of Li Lei had improved after her trip to Nanshan, it didn't mean that she wouldn't be wary. Li Lei still wanted to know her. Since we have decided to support you, the company will not make you homeless. Tan Ying was very calm. He was obviously helping Li Lei to coax the girl, but he was able to explain enough reasons. The boss heard that you can't find a house, and knowing that Peizian is difficult to deal with, he will let you live there. That house is under the boss's name, and you are always safe within his sphere of influence. He paused and then added, anyway, if it's empty, it's still empty. But she still felt that Big Boss Li's kindness was a bit suspicious. However, there is no other way. After all, the only one who can save her from Peizian is someone with money, power, and background like Li Lei. She thought for a while and confirmed with Tan Ying again and again if she just had to pay the rent without any additional conditions. With Tan Ying's solemn assurance, she finally nodded in agreement. Tan Ying made an appointment with Li Lei's personal assistant to sign a lease agreement for her. When they met, Xiaoling discovered that it was an old acquaintance Su Tang. Today, Su Tang is wearing a light white embroidered dress, her slightly curly long hair is elegantly scattered on her shoulders, and the scent of camellia perfume is faintly visible. She is as elegant and generous as ever, noble and charming. She stopped in front of Xiaoling, stretched out her jade white fingers, and said with a gentle smile, "We meet again." Xiaoling stretched out her hand and shook her lightly. It felt cold to the touch, just like the undetectable coldness in the depths of her eyes. She still doesn't like Xiaoling, and Xiaoling doesn't know why. However, she is Li Lei's personal assistant, not Xiaoling's, and her emotions have nothing to do with Xiaoling. With such a mood, Xiaoling signed the rental agreement. Su Tang took her to see the house. From the dedicated elevator to Li Lei's floor, Su Tang took out the key and opened the door next to Li Lei. What comes into view is a large, spacious, and open space. All partitions have been opened. It is truly empty with only 4 walls. Su Tang's elegant and cold voice came, "This suite has been idle and has never been decorated. Since you want to live in it, you can see how to decorate it yourself. Tell me your preferred style, and I will find someone to execute it." Xiaoling walked around the spacious house. Since no one lives in it, why open all the partitions? For safety reasons. Su Tang's voice was still cold. The young master has a special status, and unsighted people often come to the door and try to assassinate him. Therefore, the space around his residence needs to be cleared and opened up. She said more. I hope the girl in front of me will be scared after hearing this and refuse to live next door to him. But Xiaoling was just stunned for a moment, then nodded. That's it, no more? Su Tang is very disappointed. Does this girl know what the assassination means? Looking at her thin and petite appearance, if a killer really sneaks in, he can kill her with just a move of his fingers. This is not the most important thing. The most important thing is that the young master's apartments and offices all over the world, even if there is extra space on the same floor, have always been opened into open areas and no one can be accommodated. Now, why is it just for such a place? An exception for an inconspicuous little girl? Su Tang felt a breath stuck in his chest and his diaphragm tightened. Xiaoling was unaware of it. In her opinion, Li Lei had a gangster background and had several enemies. It was normal for him to be assassinated, and it was nothing surprising. As for her own personal safety? Big Boss Li dares to live here, so what is she afraid of? She looked around the house again and said to Su Tang, "The bedroom, kitchen, and bathroom don't need to be too big. This sunny area." She gestured with her hands, "Make a dance studio, the bigger the better. Next to it let's build an audition room that can accommodate a lot of music equipment." Well, there are no other requirements. Su Tang made a note of it and asked her, "Do you really have any other requirements? For example, color tone, preferred style, furniture material, etc." Xiaoling shook her head. In fact, decoration is not unfamiliar to Xiaoling. She spent more than a year designing the home with Pei Ziyan with great enthusiasm, and worked with the designer to finalize every detail, lest there be even the slightest detail of imperfection. But now, even the home has been lost. What's the point of having a gorgeous house? Sutang stopped trying to persuade her, turned around and closed the door neatly, taking her away. With her residence settled, Xiaoling felt at ease and devoted all her energy to the recording of glass fingertips. Wei Shaiyin's demands were so high that even she was tortured until she shed a layer of her skin. During the break, I heard the staff praise her for her greatness, saying that few people could record a song so smoothly, and that the speed was so fast that they were not used to it. Xiaoling was speechless for a long time. Is this considered a success? I finally understand why Wei Shaiyin has never had a special partner over the years. Who can stand a picky temper like his? End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weiniang. Chapter 65. Chapter 65 Surveillance Camera. After recording the song, we shot the MV. Finally, Xiaoling's session was over, and Wei Shaiyin was in post-production, so he mercifully gave her a few days off. She received a notice from Sutang that the apartment has been renovated and can be moved. So, she simply packed her luggage, sorted out a few boxes, and officially moved. Several girls in the same dormitory wanted to help, but she didn't want others to find out that she lived next door to Big Boss Li, so she politely declined. Fortunately, Li Lei ordered Sutang to send a few workers to pick her up, and the journey went smoothly. Xiaoling came to the apartment and opened the door. The scene in front of her made her stunned for a moment. The entrance was a porch paved with white sandstone, with a gurgling spring on a small rockery and mottled moss, forming an exquisite screen. Turning around, there is a forest-style living room with a soft dark brown sofa with feather pillows scattered randomly on it. On the exquisitely polished rock coffee table is a set of ice-cracked Celadone tea sets. The floor of the living room is paved with staggered wood and stone materials, and is also inlaid with transparent glass. Under the glass is a narrow stream, paved with 5-color stones, and filled with colorful fish. Along this glass stream, she slowly leads to the balcony. Large expanses of green plants sway and occupy the site, and sunlight shines in through the branches and leaves, making it peaceful and beautiful. Under the green shade, there is a wisteria lounge chair. At this time, a person is leaning lazily on the lounge chair. At his feet is an equally lazy leopard, lying boredly on the edge of the glass stream, looking at it in ecstasy. Swimming fish under the claws. It is Li Lei and Ermao. Xiaoling has always been a little afraid of Ermao. At this time, she cautiously stopped and shouted, "Boss." She didn't ask why he was here. He was the landlord and the big boss. Even if he broke into her residence, no one would be bored and jump out to seek justice. The few workers who helped her move also left at some point. Li Lei smiled friendly at her, his dark green eyes narrowed slightly in the sunlight, and his well-proportioned body stretched gracefully, lazily, and harmlessly, just like the big cat lying at his feet. However, she had seen Mao kill people, so she naturally would not think that its owner would be someone to be trifled with. "Today's lemon tea is very good, would you like a cup?" he said in a pleasant tone. "No, thank you." She stood still and noticed that Mao raised his head. The moment Xiaoling was stared at by it, all the hairs on Xiaoling's body stood up, and she became stiff and did not dare to move. Its amber eyes looked at her for a long time, and did not look away quickly like they had in previous encounters. Instead, they concentrated on it, as if they wanted to imprint every detail of her body deeply in their hearts. That feeling is simply creepy. "Okay Ermao, don't scare our tenants." After a moment, Li Lei's voice came, with a drunken and charming magnetism, "Xiaoling, don't be nervous, it just wants to remember your appearance." Remember her appearance? Xiaoling was startled for a moment. This was not the first time Mao saw her, so why this time? Li Lei reached out and rubbed the soft fur on the back of the leopard's neck. It wants to remember not only your appearance and breath, but also every detail of your body shape, voice, gestures, and even facial expressions. From now on, you are our neighbor, and it needs to distinguish you from outside intruders. She recalled what Su Tang said about the assassin before, nodded, and understood what he meant. The originally nervous mood was somewhat calmed down by his explanation. Li Lei stood up from the wicker chair and walked over to Mao. Come with me, I will show you your new home. This is not her home. Her home has ceased to exist since the moment Pei Ziyan knocked her to the ground with a wave of his hand more than a year ago. Now this apartment, no matter how big or luxurious it is just a cold house. It's just that such thoughts can only be kept in the bottom of my heart. She followed him and walked in. She was puzzled. The apartment had already been renovated and the contract had been signed. Why did she have to ask the boss to come to see the apartment in person with her? However, she soon knew the reason. He led her to familiarize herself with the environment while explaining the indoor defense system. There are many inconspicuous places hiding exquisite and deadly mechanisms. If you are not careful, you can see blood sealing your throat and kill people instantly. Along the way, I was surprised every step of the way. Why does she feel that the apartment she lives in is not an apartment, but a trap in a dragnet? Unlike her caution, Li Lei was obviously very accustomed to these mechanisms and was as calm as taking a leisurely stroll. He said in a low magnetic voice, the defense system here is a design drawing randomly selected from more than a dozen plans. Even the designer doesn't know which one was used in the end. All the mechanisms are installed separately. Several groups of people have changed, which means that apart from you and me, there is no third person who knows all the details here, so you can rest assured. Xiaoling nodded and felt more at ease. Such a tight defense system should not be conquered as long as Pei Ziyan didn't suddenly go crazy, make up his mind, regardless of the cost, and Li Lei would fight to the death. At least here, she is safe. Boss, thank you, she said. This is the number of times she has thanked him since she met him. Xiaoling knew that with the meager rent she paid, she might not be able to rent even half a square meter of this room, but he generously took her in. No matter what his purpose was, such meticulous consideration was enough to make her grateful. Li Lei smiled warmly in the spring breeze. He took her to see the bedroom, bathroom, and workroom, and then the living room and kitchen. These two rooms are different from the previous ones, he said. In addition to the small mechanisms just now, they are also equipped with cameras. They are monitored 24 hours a day and can be connected to a special security office. If there is any abnormality, it can be dealt with in time. He pointed out the well-camouflaged cameras to her. Her expression suddenly changed. Step by step, she retreated until she was at the bedroom door, out of reach of the camera. She held one hand tightly on the door frame and said in a harsh voice, "Boss, please, have someone remove all the cameras." Li Lei's eyes darkened slightly. Why? She avoided answering and took a step back. Please, tear it all down, all of it. Li Lei walked towards her step by step. Xiaoling, this is a necessary protective measure. Her voice trembled slightly. I don't need it. He had already walked up to her and looked down at her. You have to give me a reason. Xiaoling shook her head and was speechless. There are some scars that can never be expressed in words. To her, they are eternal bone spurs. No matter when they are touched, they will be unbearably painful. Closing her eyes, time went back, as if she had returned to Pei Ziyan's huge villa. In the empty bedroom, she was curled up on the ground, naked, with a gilt chain firmly locking her ankles, looking in all directions, no matter from which angle. Everywhere you go, you can see the cold cameras, reflecting the inorganic light. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Sci-fi. Chapter 66. Chapter 66, Fire Prevention, Theft Prevention, Boss Prevention. The memories of the past were messy and unbearable, making it almost impossible for her to stand on her feet. She held onto the wall and staggered back. Lily stared at her closely, asking step by step, "What's wrong? What's the reason?" Intuitively, he knew that this was the key to her secret. At this moment, many things flashed through his mind, her astonishing the singing talent, the mysterious sadness in the eyes, and the skillful equestrian skills that came from nowhere when riding horses in Nanshan. He wanted to know everything about her. But Xiaoling just shook her head and retreated even more embarrassed. "Don't tell me," he looked at her deeply, "your reaction is very strange. As an artist, even a newcomer who has just debuted, it is impossible not to be used to being exposed in front of the camera. In fact, Tan Ying and Wei Xiaoyindu told me that your camera sense is very good and more natural than many veteran artists. So," he concluded, "what you are afraid of is not the camera, but the surveillance." She took 2 more steps back, in a hurry. He didn't let her go and followed her closely. "Even if we walk on the street, surveillance cameras are everywhere. When ordinary people face surveillance, they won't have such a violent reaction like you. What are you afraid of?" "What?" "Stop asking." Her voice was hoarse, and she took several steps back. Inadvertently, she fell onto the lounge chair behind her. She hurriedly tried to get up, but he had already stepped forward, leaned down, and placed his hands on both sides of her body. "Xiaoling," his breath brushed against her ear, his voice was low and charming, "if you have something on your mind, tell me." "No," she murmured weakly. Trapped by him, she had not been this close to a man for a long time. She could even smell the smell of dry tobacco on his body, as well as the faint feeling of oppression like thunder. It was very strange, and it carried unspeakable danger, which made her feel uneasy. She was trembling slightly and stretched out her hand to push him hard, but his chest was as hard as stone and did not move at all. "Let me go," she finally couldn't help it and shouted tremblingly. His deep eyes seemed to look into the depths of her eyes. He raised her chin with one hand and said in a persuasive way, "Xiaoling, be good and tell me he is a master among flowers, and no one can resist his charm. At this time he has torn away his usual gentle and harmless disguise, taking on a slightly dangerous aura, and will do whatever it takes to achieve his goals." Xiaoling began to understand why others were so afraid of him. Her body was shaking even more. The close contact with men was an unbearable torture for her. The fragmented fragments of the past flashed again. She was imprisoned and tortured in a cage. Cold sweat broke out on her forehead, her breathing became rapid, and she began to look dazed. Suddenly, I felt a lightness on my body. It was Lilei who let her go. She had no time to think, so she stood up in a hurry, rolled and crawled back to the wall, huddled in the corner, and pressed her back tightly against the cold wall. She looked at him in fear, gasping for air. Lilei took the same position as he had just forced her to do, with his hands on the edge of the recliner and looking at her. The white cotton and linen top looked a little messy due to her struggle. A button at the collar was loosened and slightly open, revealing the light brown underneath. Shapely muscles come. His hair was slightly messy, and his dark green eyes were slightly narrowed, showing a hint of laziness and a hint of danger. He didn't speak, and she didn't speak either. After an unknown amount of time, he casually grabbed a bathrobe beside the recliner and threw it over, "Put it on, the ground is cold." Although he wanted to find out her secret, he saw that she looked wrong and was on the verge of collapse, so he softened and let it go. "Got her." Xiaoling subconsciously caught it, and then realized that she was sitting on the ground. The floor was hard and cold. She hugged the soft and white yukata into her arms, but did not dare to move. She braced herself and looked at him nervously. He smiled softly. Xiaoling, when we first met, I gave you a bouquet of flowers. She remembered that it was a bunch of color-changing hibiscus. I don't know why he suddenly brought up this unrelated topic. Lilei sat up, and she quickly shrank further away from him. He was still smiling. Don't be afraid, I didn't do anything to you. He continued the topic. At that time, I felt that the flower was very suitable for you, and now it seems that it is indeed the case. You know it. What is the language of flowers? She doesn't know, and she doesn't want to know. She just hopes that the crazy boss in front of her will soon return to normal and return to his usual talkative self. It's a pity that God didn't fulfill his wish, so I only heard him say slowly. It is beautiful, slender, and pure. She looked at him blankly. She was obviously not beautiful, slender, or pure. But he put aside the question of Huayu and asked a more tricky question: what if I don't agree to remove the camera? Her heart sank little by little. Looking at him, the man in front of him looked so calm and leisurely, yet so condescending. Xiaoling couldn't help but think of what the old director once said when she was in the orphanage a long time ago: children, in this world, no one will be nice to anyone without any reason. One day when you leave here, you must remember that there is a limit to the kindness of others to you. Never, never cross that limit. She was silent for a long time, and finally said, Boss, I'm sorry for bothering you. I will move out immediately. The past incident of being imprisoned by Pei Ziyan was a nightmare that she could not bear to look back on. She was not sure what would happen if it happened again. Would you be completely devastated if you stayed in a room with surveillance cameras? It's better to leave here. Even if it is difficult, we must find another place to stay that can avoid Pei Ziyan. Lilei raised his eyebrows slightly, not expecting that she would give such a reply. This girl was more sensitive and stubborn than he thought. He said easily, I mean, what if? Why are you nervous? You have two choices: leave the camera, or leave a channel for Mao so that he can come over for inspection at any time. Xiaoling felt like she was being pardoned, so she said without thinking, keep 2 hairs. The leopard broke into her life like this. Every day, it would sneak through the hidden passage and patrol her room like a lord. Lilei said, Xiaoling, this is necessary. You live next door to me, which means that the danger does not only come from Pei Ziyan. In fact, compared to my enemies, Pei Ziyan is not too troublesome. She remembered his identity as the eldest grandson of the Li family. I knew in my heart that what he said was probably the truth. The defensive measures here are mainly aimed at enemies on the road. As for Pei Ziyan, they are mostly just incidental. After all, no matter how rich and powerful Pei Ziyan is, he is just a serious businessman. When it comes to killing people, setting fires, and robbing homes, he is far inferior to the professional society. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weiniang. Chapter 67. Chapter 67. Blue Enchantress. Xiaoling actually complained about Lilei letting Mao come over, but thinking that it was not only related to her own safety, she had no choice but to endure it. Fortunately, Mao is a very smart leopard, and he probably knows that she is afraid of it. Every time he comes, he will stand at the entrance for a moment and remind her with a low roar. Its roar was gentle and not threatening at all. It was completely different from the first time we met. After patrolling the territory, it would lie down and sleep on the precious trees in her living room. Its colorful and fluffy fur was hidden by the green leaves. Several times, Xiaoling only found it when she was close to it, and she couldn't help being startled. Other times, it would lie on the balcony to bask in the sun, watching small fishes, flicking its tail, lazily and comfortably. Xiaoling couldn't help but wonder, for whom did Li Lei decorate the house like this? Fortunately, its scope of activity is usually limited to these two places. Even if she has to inspect other places, she will choose a time when she is not at home. Occasionally, Xiaoling will find light leopard paw prints on the carpets in the dining room and studio. As for the bedroom, it seems to have wandered at the door, but never enter. This somewhat reassured her. The post-production of Glass Fingertips went smoothly. Under the arrangement of Sister Mena, the publicity warm-up was also carried out in an orderly manner. On the front page of the entertainment news, it was reported that Wei Shaiyin composed a song for a mysterious newcomer. It said that the gold medal music producer Wei Shaiyin is an extremely picky perfectionist. Over the years, he has never helped any newcomers make a debut song because no one can meet his requirements. Now, this exception has been broken. Why? As soon as this news came out, it immediately caused a sensation. People speculated who the lucky newcomer was. Was it because his perfect singing skills had reached Wei Shaiyin's abnormal standards, or was there some ulterior story? Subsequently, the news came out at 1.8 points. The first picture is of Xiaoling and Wei Shaiyin on location. At that time, she had just finished filming a scene in the water and came out of the pool dripping wet. Her face was pale from the cold and her lips were purple. Wei Shaiyin took a big towel from the staff and wrapped it around her body. Her tall figure leans forward slightly, with a concerned expression. The angle is captured very well. Xiaoling in the picture looks thin and beautiful. Her face is as delicate as fine porcelain. Reflecting the shallow skylight, water droplets drip down from her hair, sliding along her collarbone and into the wet. The see-through white top is almost sinister. The last words were spoken by Sister Mena, and she also captured the photo at the scene. She said, "Xiaoling, do you believe this photo of yours is definitely popular?" Xiaoling said it was true. Every photo of her was very popular, which made Sister Mena give her a big eye roll. Sister Mena said again, "Wei, please sacrifice yourself and use your popularity to make news for a few days." Wei hesitated to speak and looked at Xiaoling, but finally succumbed to Sister Mena's lustful power. Xiaoling doesn't care about news hype, as long as her agent handles these matters. But she forgot one thing, she forgot to understand how cruel her new partner's manager was, so much so that when the outside world spread rumors that she and Wei Shaiyin were a couple, she was so shocked that she didn't know what to do. How to react. Wei Shaiyin called her and lectured her angrily, "You are a pig for choosing such an agent. Don't you know that Sister Mena is the queen of scandals? Why do you think I don't want to provoke her? You know how terrible scandals are." What? In the end, it was Xiaoling who comforted him. After hanging up the phone, I remembered one thing, bastard, when Sister Mai Na said she was using his popularity to make news. Looking at Wei Shaiyin's expression, she clearly guessed something, but she didn't resist. She was clearly tricked by him. Okay. She is the victim, okay. He actually blamed her. In anger, Xiaoling almost went back and scolded him. Thinking that her new song was still in the hands of others, she suddenly became discouraged. Forget it, impulse is the devil, she tolerates it. News reports came one after another. Photos of him taking her to the music festival were also exposed, as well as the fact that he personally selected her to participate in the group dance during the funeral song last year. There was a lot of commotion outside. Some said she was trying to get the upper hand, some said true love, and some said she was not good enough for Wei Shaiyin. Fortunately, Wei Shaiyin still had many honest fans who argued that they were innocent based on reason. Yes, Wei Shaiyin escorted her purely out of appreciation for music. In any case, Xiaoling, now known as Yexing Ling, is famous again. Sister Mai Na's method was very clever, quietly attracting people to dig into the personal situation of Yexing Ling. She was born in an ordinary civilian family, She has a mean stepmother and a vegetative sister. She is strong and independent, and she has always worked hard in the training camp, because he was so outstanding that he was once poached by the emperor at a high price, but Tianyi refused to let him go no matter what. Seeing this, even Xiaoling herself was almost moved. More and more people are looking forward to her debut song, and everyone wants to know whether she is praised because of her relationship with Wei Shaiyin, or whether she is really so powerful that even the emperor is jealous and covets her, and he does not hesitate to compete with Tianyi. Shelf. This topic is so lively that even the news that Xiaoyu is going to release her first album has been pushed aside. I have to say that no matter what the process is, judging from the results, Sister Meina is a brilliant agent and well-deserved. It was just hard for Wei Shaiyin. She was chased and intercepted by reporters for many days in a row, and she almost didn't dare to go out. Finally, Glass Fingertips was released as scheduled. It topped the new song chart in the first week and was widely praised. Even the most picky critics have to admit that the lyrics, music, and performance of this song are of extraordinary quality. Those who said that she was following Wei Shaiyin gradually died down. On the contrary, many people said that they were moved by it. Almost in tears. Soon, the first batch of fans gathered around her, and under the operation of Sister Meina, an official support club was established. Luoluo sent a postcard to congratulate her on her debut. Lu Tao, Lan Lan, and some classmates from the training camp also asked people to hand over gifts one after another. This morning, Xiaoling got up and washed up as usual. She was about to go out to Wei Shaiyin's studio when she suddenly heard the doorbell ringing. Opening it, it was the security supervisor downstairs in the apartment. He was wearing a smart suit and handed the beautifully packaged items to her. "Ms. Yeah, someone has sent you flowers." It was only after Xiaoling moved in that she found out that the entire apartment building belonged to Li Lei, and the people living in it were all his close brothers and capable subordinates. Even the security guards downstairs were secretive masters and subordinates. Yu Li's family, not this community. She thanked the security chief and accepted the flowers. It was a large bouquet of extremely beautiful blue enchantress, with layers of petals still stained with morning dew. The fragrance was fragrant. Holding it in my arms, it almost buried her slender figure. She closed the door, sat back on the sofa, rummaged through the sea of petals, and finally found a small card with a message. At first glance, he threw it away like an electric shock and shrank back, as if that large bouquet of flowers was the most terrifying poison in the world. "Xiaoling, my butterfly, waiting for you to come back to me." End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 68. Chapter 68. She is a precious butterfly. The card is not signed. But Xiaoling already knew who he was, and there was only one person in the world who would call her that: "Xiaoling, my butterfly." Once upon a time, he always said that she was a butterfly. She was a cocoon when she met her, and she slowly emerged from the pupa and transformed in his garden. He said that he was a butterfly keeper, and he devoted all his efforts to cultivating a precious swallowtail butterfly, and he was willing to take whatever he wanted. At one time, she was so grateful that she forgot, how could there be only one butterfly in the butterfly keeper's garden? The big bunch of blue beauties were scattered on the sofa. Xiaoling stared at them for a long, long time. He was thinking almost unconsciously in his mind, had Pei Xian discovered her identity? No, it shouldn't be. Reincarnation is too unbelievable, and it's not a direction that a conservative person like him would think of. Moreover, if he had discovered that she was Xiaoling, I am afraid that what was waiting for her would not just be a bunch of blue witches, but a nightmare like violent hunting. Xiaoling took a deep breath and realized that he just regarded her as someone else, an insignificant person, a new butterfly. This realization made her heart ache violently. She stood up staggeringly, returned to the bedroom, threw herself on the bed, and remained motionless. Time gradually passed, the morning light slowly turned into the sunset, and the phone rang countless times. But Xiaoling couldn't hear or see anything. Her consciousness was floating in a distant place, sad and blurry. The doorbell rang for a long time. At some point, there was the sound of opening and closing doors. Li Lei broke into the room and found her on the soft bed in the bedroom. He was frightened by her appearance. The slender and pale girl curled up quietly into a small ball, staring blankly at an unknown place in the void. She looked like a fragile porcelain doll that would break and die at the slightest touch. Xiaoling. His heart clenched inexplicably and started to hurt. Xiaoling, what's wrong with you? He walked to the bedside, knelt down half kneeling, and held her hand. What's wrong with you? There was uncontrollable anxiety in his tone. Look at me, look at me. Talk to me, Xiaoling. But she just remained motionless, still staring blankly into the distance. Li Lei gradually tightened his hold on her hand and shook her. Xiaoling, wake up. Wake up. With his shaking, her eyes finally gradually focused, and she saw clearly the handsome and concerned face of the man in front of her. Under the soft light of the bedroom, Li Lei's eyebrows were deep and clear, and there were complex emotions in his deep dark green eyes. He looked at her cautiously, as if looking at the most precious treasure in the world. Xiaoling, what's wrong with you? Don't scare me. His voice was gentle and calming. Xiaoling looked at him for a long time. The unpleasant past gradually faded away in her mind, and she said hoarsely, I'm fine. Li Lei breathed a sigh of relief. Xiaoling took her hand out of his dry and warm hand, managed to support her body, and sat up. Li Lei lowered his eyes and looked at his empty palms. When he raised his eyes again, he had returned to his usual cynical expression. It's best that you're okay, he said with a lazy smile. Little beauty, can you stop coming here every now and then? Last time, you were almost stimulated into a psychosis by the surveillance camera. What stimulated you this time? You are crazy, Xiaoling scolded him feebly. Tusk, tusk, you can still curse, and you're in good spirits. Li Lei smiled again. Let me guess, this time, it's the blue enchantress on the sofa in the living room, he said casually, but his eyes were tight, staring at her. Xiaoling quickly denied, no. Li Lei's eyes darkened. In an instant, he returned to his casual smile. If you say no, then it's not. He would not force her to do something she didn't want to admit, but that didn't mean he would be fooled. Deny. It doesn't matter, he has many subordinates who can investigate slowly. One day, he will know everything about her. No one Li Lei likes can escape. By the way, he handed her something, your mobile phone. Have you been lying in bed all day? Wei Shaiyin has been looking for you, making countless calls but no one answered, and asked Mayna's sister and Tan Ying were looking for someone, and finally found me here. If Wei Shaiyin hadn't asked him to help find her, he wouldn't have known that she was acting so abnormally today. Xiaoling's brain is still a little slow. Why is he looking for me? Li Lei's eyes were bright, the sails of glass fingertips were beyond imagination. Wei plans to shoot 2 more promotional videos and talk to you about his thoughts. But he looked at her. In your current situation, it's better not to talk to him. He's furious that he can't find you, and seeing you so out of sorts. She understood that he was afraid that Wei Shaiyin would scold her. However, as soon as he finished speaking, the ringtone of his cell phone started ringing crazily. Xiaoling took it and saw that the caller ID was indeed Wei Shaiyin. Although she was ready to be sprayed by him, the moment she pressed the answer button, the crazy roar coming from the other end of the phone shocked her. It was simply menacing and full of hatred. Subconsciously, her hand shook and she threw the phone away. Li Lei saw it interestingly, chuckled, crossed his legs and changed to a more comfortable sitting position, and listened to Wei Shaiyin spewing anger with her. On the other end of the phone, Wei Shaiyin's roar was endless. I don't know how long it took, but he probably felt comfortable with the scolding, and finally he was willing to stop and take a breath. Yes, Yingling, please say something. Xiaoling looked at the phone weakly, not daring to answer it. Wei Shaiyin was about to get angry again. Why don't you say anything? Are you dead? Xiaoling stretched out her hand hesitantly, then retracted it halfway, with a confused look on her face. Li Lei glanced at her, calmly stretched out his thumb and index finger, and took the mobile phone from the corner of the bed. Hello, Wei. On the other end of the phone, Wei Shaiyin was stunned for a moment. Boss, however, after being stunned for a moment, she didn't ask why Li Lei was here. Even if outsiders didn't know that she rented Li Lei's apartment, Tan Ying, the core characters of Sister Mai Na and Wei Shaiyin are still relatively clear. Well, it's me, Li Lei said with a smile in his voice. Someone is so scolded by you that they dare not answer the phone. If you have anything, tell me. Wei Shaiyin was also polite. Xiaoling, is she okay? Li Lei glanced at her. I won't die for the time being. I caught a cold and slept at home all day. She was silent. How could she be cold? This person was just talking nonsense. However, it was a good excuse. It could perfectly explain her condition today. Couldn't he tell him that she had suddenly and inexplicably been lying at home all day? Thanks to Li Lei for covering up. Wei Shaiyin felt relieved. It's okay. Her tone suddenly turned urgent. No, she's okay, I have something to do. Can she not come to the recording studio just because she has a slight cold? Didn't we already agree to come here today? I waited all day in vain. How can you be a big name before you become famous, huh? She. Li Lei calmly changed his posture and held the phone farther away. After a while Wei Shaiyin was gasping for air, he took the phone back and said, I'll hang up if it's okay. No, Wei Shaiyin almost jumped up. Let Xiaoling answer the phone. I have a new idea about the promotional video. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 69. Chapter 69 Filming a promotional video. Li Lei didn't even raise his eyelids. Away. She hasn't eaten all day today. On the other end of the phone, Wei Xiao's voice fell silent for a moment and asked uncertainly, Boss, Xiaoling is really okay? Li Lei said calmly, what can happen? She just woke up and is a little weak. I am about to take her to dinner. Wei Shaiyin was still worried and repeatedly checked with Li Lei about her condition, and also told Boss Li to take good care of her. Xiaoling was sweating as she listened. Wei, Big Boss Li is the boss. Is it really okay for you to so confidently ask the boss to take care of a small artist? You know, it's a miracle that you haven't been fired after all these years. Xiaoling was surprised, but she was also filled with emotion. Li Lei's expression was as usual, and he responded with a yes, no displeasure at Wei Shaiyin's instructions. Xiaoling was confused. What kind of people are these people in Tianyi? If anyone in the emperor dared to speak to the big boss Pei Zion like this, he would probably have packed up and gone home. She couldn't help but take a closer look at the man who was on the phone. Under the soft light of the bedroom, his brows and eyes were peaceful, and there was a peaceful warmth in his expression. She suddenly discovered that occasionally, he seemed trustworthy. But soon, she shook her head to get rid of the thoughts in her mind. Wasn't it enough that you were deceived in your previous life? These rich and powerful men can change their promises at will without any force constraints. All the oaths made by each other are false. They are all existences that she cannot afford to offend. She would never trust the powerful people from above again. She and them were destined to be different people. Wei Shaiyin finally finished talking to Li Lei on the phone and reluctantly ended the call. Li Lei hung up the phone and handed it back to Xiaoling. "Let's go eat," he smiled and said to her, "You have heard it, Wei asked me to take good care of you. Xiaoling has no appetite, I'm not hungry." "You have to eat even if you're not hungry," he coaxed her with nice words, "otherwise your body won't be able to bear it." If anyone else were present, they would be surprised by Li Lei's gentleness at this moment. Second young master Li is really good at coaxing women. But they usually send their subordinates to deliver gifts, swipe cards, drive in and out to pick up and drop off things, and Xiaoling is definitely the first one who can really trouble second young master Li to talk softly and patiently to coax him to eat. But Xiaoling still shook her head. No woman would dare to deny second young master Li face like this, but at this moment, Li Lei was still very patient. "I made delicious scallops." His cooking skills were incomparable, and he decided to grab her stomach first. She was unmoved. "Li Lei. The second move, there are many people visiting me over there. They are all very interesting people. I will be very happy to see you." She remained unmoved. "The third trick, Mao sleeps in his room obediently and will not come out to scare you." She remained unmoved. "Okay," Li Lei gave up, "then you have a good rest, I'll go back first." He stood up and thoughtfully closed the door for her when he went out. Xiaoling curled up her knees on the bed and hugged herself. In the silence, the large bunch of blue enchantress appeared in front of my eyes again, separated into broken petals, with strange and dazzling colors. She couldn't help but imagine them spreading crazily in the living room, imagining them taking up all the space, drowning her, suffocating her. The heartbeat speeds up and cold sweat breaks out. She couldn't resist the horrific and lingering hallucinations, so she stumbled up, pulled a piece of sheet from the bed, came to the living room, and threw it hard into the big bunch of blue witches from a distance. Superior. The gorgeous flowers were covered, and a broken blue was exposed in the corner of the white sheet. Xiaoling turned around and went to the bedroom, pulled out the second sheet, and threw it into the broken blue corner. Still uneasy, he turned back and pulled out the fluffy down pillows, throwing them one by one until they piled up like a hill, completely suffocating the blue enchantress. The doorbell rings. She was startled and stayed there for a few seconds before going to open the door. Standing in front of the door was Li Lei, and a strange foreign man with blonde hair and blue eyes. She took 2 steps back and looked at them cautiously. "Hi, hello," the foreign man spoke first. He was tall and muscular, with a powerful beauty, but a friendly expression on his face. "My name is Ji Mu. I am Li Lei's friend. I'm very happy." "Know you?" Xiaoling frowned. She didn't like making friends. Turning his head, he looked at Li Lei inquiringly. "Jemu and the others are guests at my place," Li Lei said innocently. "He was very worried when he heard that you refused to eat. He must come over and have a look. By the way, he is a doctor and the last thing he wants to see is that others are ruining their bodies." "Doctor?" Xiaoling looked at the foreign man named Jimu suspiciously. His body looked stronger than Li Lei's, and he must be a very dangerous and ruthless character in a fight. "How does he look like a doctor?" As if seeing her doubts, Jimu said with a friendly smile, "I am the doctor of the Wild Wolf mercenary team. I am here to do some work nearby. I stopped by to see old friends." His tone was calm, like the warm sunshine in autumn, making people relax their guard unconsciously. But Xiaoling is not an ordinary person, she is still very wary. Her eyes swept across the dinner plates they were holding. There were lamb, oysters, scallops, some porridge, vegetables and fruit salad, which looked very delicious and rich. "I'm really just here to bring you food," Li Lei said easily. Xiaoling saw them blocking the door and refusing to leave, so she had no choice but to let them in. The living room was in a mess. Jamie's eyes swept over the piles of sheets and down pillows so fast that Xiaoling didn't notice. After a moment, he and Li Lei exchanged glances. Any question, seeing Xiaoling enter the restaurant, Li Lei walked a few steps behind and asked Jamie in a low voice. "That's where the blue enchantress is, did she cover it?" Jamie also lowered his voice. The Wild Wolf mercenary team is an internationally renowned mercenary team. The members, even just a team doctor, are extremely professional and can exchange information without anyone noticing. When Li Lei was young, he also spent time in the Wild Wolf mercenary team. At this time, he talked skillfully with his old teammates. "Yes. She must have been stimulated by something before," Jamie said softly and quickly. "Check the flower, or the person who sent the flowers. Don't touch her wound. She may need professional treatment." Li Lei nodded. This was the purpose of calling Jamie here. It was not to deliver food, but to see what was going on with Xiaoling. He had been worried about her since he realized something was wrong when he found her lying unconsciously on the bed all day. After exchanging opinions, the two of them entered the restaurant as if nothing had happened. Xiaoling was in a bad mood and did not notice that they were temporarily behind. At this time, the empty tables had been cleared away. "Thank you for bringing the food," she said politely to the two of them. "Just put it on the table and I will eat it." The implication is that they will not be left together. Li Lei has grown so big that he has not encountered as many obstacles with women as Xiaoling. But for some reason, he just can't bear to get angry at her. He feels very sorry in his heart, but on the surface he still smiles happily. "Little Ling, remember to eat it while it's hot, we're leaving first." Ji Mu. Li Er, just pretend. After sending them off, Xiaoling looked at the sumptuous food on the table. She had no appetite, but knew that she needed to replenish her strength. Being an artist is a laborious job, and she has always been very dedicated. Only when she is full can she have the strength to work. She ate the food one bite at a time and went to bed. "At night, I had a nightmare, in which I saw the broken blue enchantress, butterflies, shackles, and cages. When I woke up, I looked haggard." She washed her face, carefully put on makeup to cover up her lethargy, and went to see Wei Shaiyan to discuss the promotional video. The itinerary for the promotional film was quickly finalized, and when the date came, Xiaoling went straight to the location with the large team of people. What a coincidence when I arrived at the scene and found out. De Huang was also filming the MV at the same venue, and it was Chu Chen who brought Xiaoyu along to make a new song. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 70. Chapter 70. Meeting Xiaoyu on a narrow road. The Film and Television City coordinated the venue and confirmed their respective usage times with Emperor and Tianyi. However, the Emperor's filming did not go smoothly and often went over time, which affected the use of Tianyi, and the two sides were not happy. The crew went to the Emperor to inquire about the news. When they came back, they frowned and said that they were constantly ning. Wei Shaiyan sneered, "A low-class singer like Xiaoyu is born halfway, how many times have he suffered from this over and over again?" Everyone was silent for a while. Even Xiaoling slandered, "Wei, stop laughing at others, just say you yourself, you really like giving people ng. Sometimes this kind of thing can't be entirely attributed to the artist, who is the director and producer is also very important." However, the situation on Xiaoyu's side didn't seem to be what they imagined. The second time, the crew inquired in more detail. The one who ate ng was not Xiaoyu, but a minor supporting character. Everyone became curious and asked who it was, but the person in charge shook his head and said, "I don't know him. It's a new face I haven't seen before." He thought about it carefully and said, "But, the shape of the lips is very beautiful. They belong to the Queen Xiaoling replica." This incident was regarded as a small gossip after dinner, and it passed quickly. Only Xiaoling always feels uneasy. She can't explain why, and she feels vaguely uneasy. However, after all, it was other people's business and had nothing to do with her. She forced herself to stop thinking about it and concentrate on filming the promotional video in front of her. The venue issue could not be resolved, and several small-scale conflicts broke out between the two sides. Tianyi's team leader is Wei Shaiyin. Although he has extremely high authority within the company and enforces orders and prohibitions, the opponent he encountered this time was the emperor, Chu Chen. Chu Chen's artistic attainments were far inferior to Wei Shaiyin's, but when it came to practical work, he was a good hand. He was several blocks ahead of Wei Shaiyin, and often pushed Wei Shaiyin into a rage. Wei was unhappy, and as a result, the chances of all members of the film crew being scolded greatly increased. Xiaoling was scolded by him several times, and from then on, she tried not to hang around in front of him. During the rest of the day, seeing that he was in high spirits and about to start training, she quickly found an opportunity and quietly slipped out to get some air. Walking at a leisurely pace. This is a newly built film and television city with not many film crews. She walked around for a long time without meeting anyone, but when she turned a secluded corner, she heard voices. "Sister Xiaoyu, please let me go. I really know I was wrong and I won't pester Mr. Pei anymore, it's Mr. Pei who refuses to let me go." A girl's voice was filled with low sobs. Then there was a familiar snort. The girl's crying voice sounded again, "Sister Xiaoyu, everything I said is true, please." Xiaoling vaguely realized what was happening and couldn't help but stop. Sure enough, Xiaoyu's voice sounded, "Zhang Suxin, what are you asking me to do? I kindly asked you to join the film crew and let you participate in the MV shooting. I want to give you a good future." Her tone was always soft, but it was like a cold sharp knife. "Brother Zion, there are so many people around him, how many years can you be proud by relying on your face? Not to mention the future, just now, he has a new wife Luqian Rong, he Mixu and others, let alone still thinking about others. Even if you are the most favored now, so what? When you are old and have no ability to make a living, how will I plan for you in the future? But you think I want to harm you and you still ask me to let you go?" When she said something, the girl started sobbing. Later, she almost couldn't stop sobbing. Xiaoling tightened her fists, and her sharp nails dug into her palms, causing pain to spread. "I have long heard that after her death, Pei Zion took in many female companions, each with his or her own merits. She always avoided thinking about it, but when someone mentioned it unexpectedly, one of them even appeared alive in front of her, and she couldn't pretend that she didn't care. She didn't know why she couldn't let go of Pei Zion. His affairs could always easily affect her emotions." The girl was still crying. "Sister Xiaoyu, I know you do it for my own good," she sobbed, "but I really couldn't film the slap scene. Sister Chiu's attack was too harsh, Then you should go find Sister Chiu. I'm not the one playing with you." Xiaoyu's voice was soft, with a condescending pity. Killing someone with a borrowed knife is her usual tactic. What Xiaoyu is best at is pretending to be weak, pretending to be innocent, hiding behind the scenes and calculating everything. No matter how sinister and despicable things are, she can still find a way to get rid of herself. In her previous life, Xiaoling suffered a lot from this. Now that she was reborn, she didn't have to guess hard to know that Sister Chiu must have been instructed by Xiaoyu to deliberately embarrass others. Xiaoling didn't want to hear any more and was about to walk away when her cell phone suddenly rang. She was startled, and the people not far away were also startled. They only heard Xiaoyu's alert voice, "Who?" Since there was no way to avoid them, Xiaoling simply walked out. Only then did he see the scene in front of him clearly. Under the European retro low wall was a set of wrought iron benches. Xiaoyu was wearing a delicate lace skirt, sitting calmly. In front of her, a girl stood shivering. "Looks very good, especially the beautiful lip shape like water chestnuts, which is unforgettable at first sight. She does look a bit like Xiaoling in her previous life." Xiaoling just looked at the girl and didn't come back to her senses until Xiaoyu spoke again. Are you? Yes, Yingling. Xiaoyu tilted her head slightly, making a beautiful and cute gesture, and looked at her. His expression was very gentle when he spoke, and he had already put away his vigilance and anger. The faint skylight reflected on his face, like a pure angel. This was the first time in this life that Xiaoling had a direct conversation with her. Xiaoling thought that she felt calmer than she imagined. It was probably because she had sacrificed too much and suffered too much damage. She had long been discouraged and numb. She had abandoned this good sister out of her life and could not stir up the slightest disturbance. Thinking of Pei Ziyan again, it would be great if I could have such a state of mind when facing him. Xiaoyu still looked at her. Yes, Yingling, I'm asking you something. Xiaoling said, I'm sorry to bother you. I'm just passing by. I have other things to do, so I'll leave first. Wait a minute, Xiaoyu refused to let her go. I heard that Brother Ziyan gave you a bouquet of blue enchantress. She didn't expect Xiaoyu to mention this, and was caught off guard, so much so that she forgot to hide the strange look in her eyes. The girl next to Xiaoyu also raised her head to look at her, with a look of shock and disbelief on her face. It seems to be true. Xiaoyu's voice lowered, then raised again after a moment. Look, she turned her head to face the girl with a sweet smile. In Brother Ziyan's garden, how can there be only one rose? They are just some beautiful pastimes. Each word is heartbreaking. End of this chapter.